In this video, I'm going to share how I use the Bouncer Pro inline filter to transfer beer from fermenter to keg when I used 8 ounces of dry hop. How's it going? My name's Brian. Welcome to another video. If this is your first time here and you'd like to learn more about electric brewing, see how-to videos and product reviews just like this one, consider subscribing, and if you do, don't forget to click that bell so you won't miss a video when it comes out. Now, full disclosure, Bouncer did reach out to me and ask me if I wanted to review this unit. I've actually had it for a little while. I haven't had a chance to use it as much as I may have liked to, but I recently did a New England IPA and got a new device to dry hop with, and I used this filter in conjunction with all those dry hops in order to transfer from fermenter to keg without getting any hops in the keg. So let's jump into the specs of the unit, and I'll share with you what all it comes with and what the specs are. All right, so the body of the unit has a 1-inch NPT female thread. It does come with 2 stainless 1.5-inch tri-clamp fittings. It comes with 3 screens. The red one is 915 micron. The blue one is 304 micron, and the white one is 178 micron. So for my filtration, I'm actually using the Spike Plus fermenter, and I did kind of a hybrid fermentation where I did part of it unpressurized and then the other part of it pressurized. So I wanted to transfer under pressure, but one of the issues for me with these type of filters is how do I remove the oxygen, or how do I keep from having all the oxygen that's in that filter have the beer pass through it and have all that oxygen exposure. So what I did was I actually hooked up a male flare tri-clamp fitting to the outlet side of the filter. And then how I connected my beer line to it was with a duo-tight fitting and some beer line, as well as a liquid ball lock cap. Now I filled my keg with a Star San solution, and then I used my CO2 tank to push all of that liquid out of the keg. And what I did was I actually hooked up the Bouncer filter to the keg and pushed it out of the keg through the beer filter and let everything run through. So I'm sanitizing, and I'm also removing all the oxygen at the same time. Now, whenever the keg actually was emptied and it started blowing out CO2, in order to get the rest of the Star San out of the filter, actually flipped it over so that it would just purge all of the rest of the Star San mixture out of the filter. Now, from there, I sanitized the butterfly valve on the Spike fermenter. I sprayed some Star San on it, and then what I did after that was I put a little bit of lube on the tri-clamp gasket for the filter, because I want to be able to rotate it, and I'll show you that here just in just a second. So what I did was I took the filter, hooked it up to the keg with a little bit of pressure in it, and actually held it up to the fermenter, and I had the tri-clamp on there originally, but it wasn't letting enough pressure through, so I had to loosen it up and actually take it loose. And then I was able to kind of purge that space in between the filter connection and the Spike Flex fermenter and get all that oxygen and everything out of there. Then I tightened it down. One of the other things that I did, because I had 8 ounces of dry hops in the fermenter, was I wanted to blow just a little bit of pressure back through the dip tube, because I wasn't sure if there was hops and yeast and stuff stuck in there, and I didn't want to have a stuck transfer. So what I did was I left pressure in the keg and then just cracked open the butterfly valve just a little bit until I heard a little bit of pressure go back through the dip tube. Been kind of bubbling inside of there. I didn't want to do a lot of bubbling because I didn't want to rouse all the yeast and everything in there, because I had done a 48-hour cold crash at like 40 degrees, and to try to get everything to settle out so I wouldn't have as much sediment as possible. So after I did that, then it was just a matter of opening the butterfly valve. I did install a spunding valve on the keg. I also hooked up my CO2 tank to the fermenter and pushed it with about 10 psi, and had the spunding valve set on about 10 psi. If you're not familiar, whenever you do a pressure fermentation, it does kind of carbonate the beer. And if you don't transfer under pressure and maintain some pressure in the keg, you will have a lot of foaming issues. So did that, transferred like probably 80% of the beer with the dip tube. I had the dip tube kind of in a horizontal position. And then once I started blowing some CO2 out of the fermenter, then I loosened up the connection for the dip tube, turned it a little bit down into the beer that was in the bottom of the fermenter, straightened the filter back up, and then proceeded to transfer a little bit more. Now, once I got done with all of the transfer that I could possibly get out of the fermenter, there was still a lot of beer in the filter itself. So that was where I loosened up the connection from the filter to the butterfly valve and was able to actually turn the filter upside down and then open the butterfly valve back up because there was still pressure in the fermenter, and actually push a good majority of the beer back out. You never get all of it out of there, but I did recover most of the beer out of the filter that way. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know, are you filtering your transfers for hops, or are you doing a filtration to brighten your beer? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what kind of filtering you're doing if you are doing it. So then once I was done, I took the filter apart, and you can kind of see here that there was quite a bit of hop debris in there. I didn't want to... I used the red filter because of the fact that I didn't want to catch a bunch of, fine particles or whatever. I had used the filter in the past, and the finer filters can get clogged up if you have a lot of hops in there. So I wanted to kind of avoid getting completely clogged up, because you can do that if you have the amount of hops that I was using. But everything went fine. I didn't get a lot of particles in the beer right after I transferred everything over. I did take a sample, and as you can see, there's not a lot of particles at all floating in the beer. So I think that the filter did a great job of filtering out those hops. I mean, you can see there in the sink that there's quite a bit of debris that was left over from the transfer. But I mean, if you want to know what 8 ounces of hops in the bottom of a fermenter looks like, just take a look at that. I mean, it was thick. It was like mud in there. So for me to only get a little bit of hops in the filter was pretty amazing, really. I think it was probably due to the cold crashing. So my thoughts on the Bouncer Pro inline filter: I think it's definitely a good tool to be able to filter out any kind of sediment in the beer. If there's any cons to it, it is pretty costly. I know that there's some other stainless steel options out there, but from what I've read, those things are pretty heavy and they're kind of bulky too. The one thing I do like about the Bouncer inline beer filter is that it does have a clear, it's clear, so you can definitely see through the filter and see if there's any kind of sediment building up in there, and it'll let you know if like you're getting a clog or something like that. With the temperatures that it's capable of handling, you really can't transfer like directly from from your boil kettle to a fermenter. But if you sanitize it and chill down your wort, you can definitely transfer it from your kettle into the fermenter if you want to try to catch a bunch of trub and everything. The only thing I will tell you with that is you definitely want to make sure that you put it on the outlet side of your pump, because you don't want to be restricting the flow into the pump. So you'd want to put it on the pressure side of the pump. That way, if it should get clogged or something like that, that it's not restricting the flow into your pump. I'll leave a link in the description for the product if you're interested in it. You can go check it out. I certainly do appreciate you guys watching the videos. Thanks to everybody that's subscribed. We recently passed 30,000 subscribers, so that's a huge milestone in my opinion. I'd like to thank all of our Patreons. We certainly do appreciate their support as well. They're absolutely amazing, and we have a great time over there on the Patreon page. So if you're interested in that, I'll have a link in the description for that below as well. This has been Brian for Short Circuit Brewers. We'll see you in the next video.